Good morning. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Nampa, Idaho, and we're glad to be with you here at Bluebird Quilt Studio. We have some fun things to share with you. We'd like to share a brand new sample that we have of a Block of the Month program that we'll be offering. We also have some fun classes coming up. We have an extraordinary guest teacher coming next week. We want to share that information with you. Plus, we thought we'd talk about some tips about how you could prepare a quilt to be quilted by a professional quilter. So those are the things that we have coming for you this morning. We hope you find them interesting and entertaining along the way. So let's dive right in. This beautiful quilt behind me is called Mountain Meadow, and it's by Sarah J. Designs. Gorgeous, gorgeous fabric from Timeless Treasure Boutiques. It is unbelievably beautiful. I hope the camera is capturing some of these fabrics well, because it's got this beautiful aqua and lavender, pale grays, kind of some neutrally whites and blues. It is stunning. So Nina and I were looking at this quilt this morning and going, might need to make one of those ourselves. So we're kitting that up now. Make sure you get your name on the list, because the first day the actual quilt top sample was ready to go and it went up in the shop, those kits went fast. So make sure that you get your name on the list for Mountain Meadow Block of the Month if you're interested in that particular one. I think it's going to go quick. So we have Mountain Meadow Block of the Month. We also have a really fun class. Nina's going to be offering this class. We showed you a picture of, we showed you the actual duffel bag. This great bag is a weekender bag, and she went to pick up her daughter from college and took the bag with her, so it's not here in the shop. But this class is coming up. We do have kits available. We have all the hardware. That is such a nice nice thing that you don't have to go looking for all of the extras with these bags, because they're hard to collect. So that duffel bag class. Nina, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, the kit and the class is $75. Includes everything except for the fabric. So I think you need about a yard for the outside, a yard for the inside, a fat quarter, and a half yard for the contrast and the straps. So that's all you got to get yourself is the fabric.
And you know what? If you've got a few quilt blocks, you can mix and match some quilt blocks in there. I think it could be super, super cute. You could really customize it and make it just right for you. I think this would be an awesome gift bag too, because it does look simpler than some of the more advanced, for example, by Annie bags. So that one looks like a great winner of a project and a good summer project. So we've got the Mountain Meadow Block of the Month. We've got that patchwork duffel. That is an option. We also have over here, we have these beautiful Hoffman fabrics. It's like diving into the deep blue sea. So these fabrics by Hoffman are part of the Hoffman 100-year challenge. So Hoffman Fabrics has been in business for 100 years, and they are celebrating that anniversary with a special Hoffman challenge. We do have a little club that's meeting for those of you that are interested in pushing yourselves a little bit out of the box. We're meeting for lunch. Hello. We'd be happy to have you join us. So it's going to be fun to get together and have a group to just be a part of doing an adventure in quilting and designing with these gorgeous fabrics. To be a part of that little club here at Bluebird, we just ask that you buy a collection of the fat quarters. So we have a pre-packaged group of the fat quarters, and then you can join us. And obviously we have those fabrics on the bolt. I do think that those will go quickly. So jump on into the deep blue sea here with the Hoffman 100-year challenge, and I think you'll really be enjoying that. Another thing that is starting this week is, many years ago, there was a program that was called Row by Row. It has now become Quilter's Track. And quilt shops around the United States design a 9.5 by 36.5 unfinished row or column, as you see we have here. This is our Bluebird row. Needs a little binding. Got to get on that. But in any event, this is our row for the Quilter's Trek 2023 challenge. If you are traveling this summer, check out the Quilter's Trek website and check out what shops are offering these blocks, because if you come into the shop, you will get a free pattern for the block that they are offering. They all will, and we will offer kits that you can purchase, but if you come into the shop, you will get a free pattern. And this starts June 1st, so that's next week. Can you believe it? So this is our row. It's got bluebirds. It's got some wildflowers. I was envisioning Indian paintbrush and lupin here, and an Idaho sunset along a lake. So you got all of Idaho right there. So visions of summer camp trips, you know how that goes. So those are some of the projects that we have going. Let's talk about how you can prepare a quilt top to have your top professionally quilted. So we have a charity quilt that was brought in that will be quilting to go to some lucky person. But let's say that you have this top and you're bringing it in to have quilted here. So what we recommend that you do is you actually measure your top, okay? That should give you a pretty good idea of whether your top is square. But a really good tip to find out whether your top is square is fold it into quarters and see if it lines up. And as you can see here, we've got a few issues going on down there. Okay, so it isn't quite square. That's okay. But knowing that and telling that information to your quilter ahead of time, they can do quite a lot of adjustment if they know about it ahead of time. Okay, you do need to ask them about that, because some quilters may just opt out of that type of customizing your quilt top, but they should be able to adjust for that amount and square up your top, so that if you were going to use this fun little quilt as a wall hanging, for example, it would hang square. I'm not so sure that if we just quilted this edge to edge and weren't paying attention to that, whether it would hang square on a wall, for example. So important to know. While it's folded up in quarters like we had it there, you also want to take your backing. And if you've pieced your back, make sure that your back doesn't have any selvages in it. Oftentimes when we're piecing a back together, we might sew two chunks of backing material together to create our back. Using the selvages, that's fine. Use the selvages to kind of stabilize that and make sure it doesn't get stretched. But once you've sewn the two pieces together along the selvage, make sure you trim away selvage, because it has a different amount of stretch and it can create gaps in your back, little divots in your back, and you don't want that. So make sure you trim off any excess selvage. Once you have your back pieced and pressed, okay, then go ahead and fold it into quarters along with your top. You need to have excess fabric out here for a long arm quilter, and depending on the size of your quilt and your quilter specifications, that might be as much as 3 or 4 inches along each side and along the top and the bottom. Okay, it may be even more than that. Okay, if your quilt is larger, you might need a little more than that. So make sure you check with your quilter what their specifications are for that. It's also really, really critical that your backing is square. So make sure that that happens. It's actually more important that your back is square than your quilt top is square, because as your quilt is pinned onto a long arm, the leaders and the clamps will keep it square as it's feeding through the machine if it started square. It will also be cattywampus in the machine if it didn't start square. So make sure your back is square, okay? And if it's not, tell your quilter to trim it off. Now, they may charge you for those additional, the additional time that it takes, but make sure that you convey that information to them. The other thing that we often think about when we're measuring our tops, I don't know if I finished that thought actually. So once your back and your top are all folded in quarters, lay them on top of each other and make sure that you have excess along all of the unfolded edges so that you have adequate backing for your quilt. You'll want to do that with the batting as well. And obviously there are all kinds of choices for batting and giving you different looks and effects. And along with the choice of quilting that you use, you could have a really fluffy looking quilt, or you could have a flatter, more modern style quilt. So that's another topic for another day. But I thought we would talk about thread choice a little bit. So if I was doing this top right here, and was auditioning some thread for this top, so I'm going to put it here so you can get this in the camera frame, okay? I want it to look good along all of these different colors, right? But I especially don't want it to overwhelm these feature blocks. So probably the traditional fabric. So if you spool off some thread here and you lay it on your quilt top, you can see that's really going to disappear in there, okay? And depending on the density of your quilting, and again, spool off what kind of density you think your quilting will be, you'll get an idea that this is basically just going to disappear. If you have a project where you want the quilting to show a little bit, oftentimes using a pale thread with just a slight bit of color is a great way to kind of bring out the quilting. So if we pull off some blue here, this is just really pale blue, and you would not necessarily read blue. It would probably look, you know, somewhat cream or white. But you can see that does show up a little bit more if you wanted to feature that. Okay, if we go a little darker here, this one shows up even a little bit more. Okay, let me get this out of the way. But you can see as we go up the intensity here, it's going to show more and more. And all of these are similar in weight. Okay, obviously if you want to go for a bigger punch, we could go with this fun raspberry colored thread. This is bottom line thread, so it's a 60 weight thread, so it's still pretty fine. Gotta find the end here. But this might be fun, honestly. It's so fine, I think you could actually get away with quilting on it. And that would make the quilting pop off of the design. And I don't think that it's so thick that it would compete too much, even with a bright pink thread. It's so fine. So anyway, laying your threads in a pool across your fabrics will let you test out the colors. So that's a great way to audition threads. So we hope that those tips for quilting your quilt are going to be helpful in having a quilter assist you with your quilting. However, please know that these services can be quite pricey and can add up as you gain experience and you dive into the addiction that is quilting. So please don't disregard the option of maybe seeking out the possibility of owning your very own long arm. We do have an event coming up. We have just a few seats left in the second session, which is Friday and Saturday of next weekend. So that's June 2nd and June 3rd. That's Friday and Saturday. It's from 9 to 4 at the Holiday Inn with Barb Tatera. She's going to be fantastic. And you can learn more about that. Get your hands on a long arm. Try it out. Have a great time. We'll have good food, good friends. We'll laugh a lot. It will be fun. Learning how to quilt. So that is a great option. We'll also have deep discounts on some demo machines and some possibilities that you might not be aware were in your reach. If you're having 3 or 4 quilts quilted a year, you might want to check into having your very own long arm in your own house. We also have a game night that's coming up, and it's going to be fun. We are going to play quilty games. We're going to get tips from Barb Tatera, our national educator for our event, and we are going to eat cheesecake. So all of that is good, good, and good. So please join us for that. It's Tuesday, May 30th at the Holiday Inn at 7 o'clock. Call for your tickets for that. We are offering discounts on both our van event with our national educator and our game night. So hope you can join us for those. It's going to be fantastic, and just a few spots left in that education event. Have a great week, and thank you for tuning in to Facebook Live.